Hey guys, man, action bring guys the final part of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trials and Tribulations. Man, this game has been possibly the longest game I've done for a long, long time. Man, I started uploading this in like April. Damn, this has been a very long let's play. Now we're in November. Damn, but we're finally here. In the last part. This might be a very, very long part. Who knows? I'm not 100% sure. But we're going to find out the truth. We're going to prove that Godo was the murderer. And we're going to find out why Maya is so desperate to defend him. So, she looked around, but she couldn't find anyone. Next day, when the bridge finally was fixed, she was in the spare prep room. That's when Mr. Godo arrived at the inner temple for the first time. He found Furley first and showed it right up. Okay, we know who Furley is. But what you heard from someone else is simply not admissible as testimony. True, yeah. Furley would never lie. She's way more honest than I'll ever be. You're smart, Maya. You always know the best things to say when you're under oath. The prosecution has no objection. We believe the witness. Mr. Godo, let's move on to the cross-examination. The defense has no objections. It's highly unusual, but, well, Mr. Wright, let's get this cross-examination started. Godo's like, he took the bait? Alright. So where did you think Pearl slept that night? In the spare prep room next to the training hall, I guess. There's a rule that you can't enter the training hall during the anatolicized training. But even so, why did she go to the inner temple in the first place? It seems that Pearls became very worried about Maya. She knew that the spiritual training I was about to undergo was very intense. Pearls was supposed to child Dahlia Holford, but she couldn't do it. That's why she headed to in the temple. However, Dahlia Holford was already there, possessing the body of at least Dunim. She searched the entire inner temple side, end to end. Well, you see, Pearl was pretty scared when she's alone, and there weren't many places to look. She says that she even went back and forth several times. The inner temple side has two structures, the training hall and the spare prep room. There's also a storage sack, I think. That's about it. There's a storage sack too. Pearls was looking for other people, right? Would she have really examined the storage sack all that carefully? Well, if it was me, that would be the first place I would investigate. So that means it's possible that someone may have been hiding in the storage stack. Pearls didn't hear the sound of them working on the bridge. What do you mean? I was just wondering why she didn't stay in the prep room. If it was me, I'd at least go out and wait at the footbridge. Oh well. Pearl said she was sleeping at the time. She said she was so scared during that night that she couldn't sleep well, and woke up a bunch of times. Poor little girl, all alone like that. Well, we know that she had at least one friend inside the cabin, Dahlia Hawthorne, who was busy battling the trick lock. She couldn't let anyone see her, so she wouldn't have shown herself to Pearls. What happened after the bridge was finally fixed? So if it was the first time on the inner temple side, Mr. Godo. That's funny. Am I imagining things, or did the defense ask me a question? Mr. Wright, please save your questions for the witness. What you heard from someone else is simply not admissible as testimony. Those are your words, Your Honor. Touche, Mr. Wright. Oh well. What do you have to say, Mr. Godo? Hot nights and even hotter coffee. That's why I always say. If it hadn't been for this case, I never would have visited there. A freezing cold temple in the mountains? I think I'll pass. So you had never visited a temple or the inner temple, huh? You want to say something, try. In any case, I have to find a crack in Godo's armor. While I cross-examine Maya, that is. Very well, please go on with your testimony. After fixing the bridge, the policemen came over to the temple side, correct? Mr. Godo is there. That's what Pearl said. She said he was a very nice older gentleman. Thank you for looking after my cousin, Mr. Godo. No more than a coffee addict. Definitely looks like it. Cut it out. You're making me blush. This guy is really beginning to get on my nerves in more ways than one. The truth is, there aren't that many places to look on the inner temple side. The police were all busy going over the garden with fine-tooth combs. So I decided to carry out an investigation in my own way, Godo style. In the same way, I like to hand down verdicts my own way, just style. Maybe I should ask some more questions, Phoenix style. So I reached it up. When I found that little girl, the first thing she asked was about a curry my Really? The bridge had burnt down, and she was huddled up in a tiny shack with no heat. Even though she must have been had a true terrifying night out there. She asked about you before she said about myself. I noticed that you weren't anywhere on the inner temple side. Oh, so you gave her a cup of coffee. There's only one thing of importance here. Where was Godo when the meditate was taking place? He must have already been at the inner temple when it happened. Otherwise, he couldn't have killed at least Junim. Okay, there was another thing we need to ask her. Okay, another Phoenix style question. What is this investigation? After all, I did miss the blood writing on the lantern. Well, I didn't miss it, so speak for yourself, Goals. The only odd thing I discovered was the beauty in the training hall. Beauty? Misty Faye, naturally. Clad in her stunning Japanese garb, surrounded by the hue of aroma, an aroma of Western tastes. Western taste? Could he find a stranger way? Oh, so from there you headed headed to the park. Wait a sec. What did Godo say now? I think I just found his proverbial weak spot. There's only one thing of any importance here. Weak spot. What did he say? He said something. What did he say? I completely missed it. He's talking about... So, Phoenix just pointed out that he wouldn't have known a certain piece of evidence, and I think I know what he's talking about. The hanging scroll should have been covered in gravy, so how did he know that the hanging scroll had Misty Faye's image on it? The first time he crossed Dusty Bridge and went to the Inner Temple was long before the murder took place. Because he just made a fatal slip-up. The hanging scroll in the training hall. Mr. Godo is right. That scroll shows a picture of my mother. Maya, I know you know who he is, but there's something you didn't know. By the time the bridge had been repaired, 2 days after the murder, the hanging scroll in the training hall looked like this. Yeah, Pearl covered it in gravy. Crest up there. Yeah, where's she going with the crest? You could guess. No. Describe what was underneath like this. Clad in a stunning Japanese garb surrounded by the hue. Yeah. Yes, it's possible that he knew what the crest meant. However, how did she know what she was wearing? Yeah, he was hiding in the temple way before the crime. Yeah. Otherwise, there's no reason for him to sneak. Of course he did. Was it really possible that the person knew? Yeah. Look what it says. Her name is. She is a lie. Here's a picture of her. He must have read this letter. Hold on a second. No, there's no date on this. Author to my daughter, and these instructions were hidden somewhere in the frame matter for a year. However, by the time little Pearls found the instructions, they had already been unsealed. Yeah, they were, weren't they? The killer had read these instructions long before Pearls ever found them. That's how he knew the crime was to take place at the Inner Temple. You're saying this crafty killer is me? You bet I am. As you just said that the instructions were hidden. That's right. Mr. Goro couldn't have known where the instructions were hidden. If he really wanted to know, he had one great chance to find out. What was that? During a visit. Morgan Fay told her daughter Pearl about where the instructions were hidden. During one of her visits to the detention center. That would be the only time for someone to have learned where they were hidden. Yes, it could be arranged if you were someone with easy access in and out there. For example, a prosecutor such as Mr. Godo. He still seems unfazed. Order. Mr. Godo, you're under fire again. This murder could have happened, carried out without prior knowledge, and you were the only one that could have acquired this information before the murder. Humans are afraid of the dark, and yet At the same time, we're fascinated and bewitched by it. Maybe that's why humans drink the darkness that is coffee. Sorry for always asking, but what does that mean? It means there's a reason for everything. According to your theory, the killer in this case eavesdropped on a conversation during a jail visit where he learned of a hidden plan for a crime. After discovering the plans, he hid in the inner temple and waited for the crime to occur. Then he ultimately took the person's life. And he did all of that just to protect his witness. That's right. If you're accusing me of this crime, I have to ask you, why did I do this? This girl is nothing but a stranger to me. Oh, because we know who you really are. That's why. I am what you see. I am certainly not the type to rescue damsel in distress, no. But there's a reason why. It's because you're linked to her in some sort of way. Even considering that the killer wanted to protect his witness's life, his behavior is still just too unnatural. You knew it. You figured it out, haven't you, Nick? Yeah. I guess you were doing your best to cover for Gordo. For the same reason, huh? Okay, Trite. I'm all ears. Let's hear it. It's very simple. My affair is a lot more than just a stranger to you. What's this? There's one person who lies at the very center of this whole story. One person that ties you and my fate together inexplicably. And that's a sister. And your former friend. There's a very good reason why my Faye's life is so precious to you. After all, she's Mia Faye's only sister. Mia Faye. You once worked alongside her. That was when you were a defense attorney. Wait a second, Mr. Godo is a defense attorney? With your honest piercing intellect, you must have figured it out by now. The real name of this man who calls himself Godo. His real name is Diego Armando. Isn't that right? That was pretty obvious like a long time ago, but last time someone called me by that name was over 6 years ago. Diego Armando. That name rings a bell. It should, Your Honor. All of this is related to a single case. A case in which a convict named Terry Falls killed himself. My Faye's first time in court, the tragic outcome left a deep wound in her heart. She knew that behind it all was a heartless, scheming demoness in disguise. But in the end, Mia couldn't tear off the disguise. However, there was one man who reached out to help her, Diego Armando, a senior defense lawyer at the office where Mia worked. I was moved by her. The way she puts her faith in her clients, that pure street heart of hers. That's why I could never forgive Dahlia Hawthorne. Mia and I thoroughly investigated that fake kidnapping incident. That one fateful day, Dahlia went to meet with me. It had been 6 months since that trial. We met in the courthouse cafeteria. Just remembered, 6 years ago, right here in this courtyard, you were poisoned. Even I didn't see it coming. Dahlia Hawthorne slipped some poison into my coffee. Some newspapers at the time called it a murder, but very little information about the case was released to the press. But she weren't dead at all. No official reports ever actually called it a murder. It was just in a deep, deep coma. You were in a coma? My body shut down and my life became nothing but a long, deep sleep. That woman poison did a real number on my central nervous system. I lost my sight, and all of my hair turned white due to the damage it caused. It's terrible. Apparently, it was a miracle that I even regained consciousness. 5 years had passed since I drank that poison coffee brew. Then one moment, my eyes flew open, even from the smell of the doctor's cup of coffee. 5 years? You were asleep for 5 years? The worst possible news was waiting for me. Mia Fey was dead. From the very moment I opened my eyes, I had already lost everything I thought I had. The woman I loved had been murdered, and the woman I loathed had been sentenced to death. The woman you loved, the woman who had spiked my scalding hot coffee, Dahlia Hawthorne. Good old Mia. She never let me down. She got her revenge before she checked out. In the end, there wasn't anyone waiting for me when I woke up. That's so sad. For someone like me, someone who had slept away their best days, there were only 2 reasons left to live. And it was for those 2 reasons that I decided to become a prosecutor. If I may ask, what are your 2 reasons to live? The first was you, right? Me. If I hadn't drank that stupid poison, Mia Fey never would have died, much less the way she did. You were the only one who was there to protect her, but you let her die. It was all your fault. It wasn't like that. I wanted to see myself what kind of man you really were. So that's why you became a prosecutor? Another reason for living. She goes by the name of Mia Fey. You mean me? You were the only way I could make up for the sin of not saving Mia. 1 year ago, when the Korean village incident was resolved, it was obvious that Morgan Fey was planning something. Whatever her evil plan was, I was determined to stop it. My role as a prosecutor put me in a perfect position to do something about her. That's how you overheard Pearl's visit with Morgan at the detention center. I knew that the time was drawing near. Since I knew the plan, I thought I could foil it. My goal was to outwit the plan. I thought if I could do that, I could keep the girl from being caught up in it. If Pearl had known the actual purpose of the plan was to kill Maya, she would have never helped out. Finally, the day of the plan was drawing near. I contacted both my accomplices. Accomplices? Iris of Hazakura Temple and Misty Fey. I especially needed the help of Iris. She was to take the fall in my in my backup plan in case we couldn't control Pearl Fey. But how did you contact my mother? She'd been missing for almost 20 years. Officially, yes. What do you mean officially? You've heard about it, haven't you? About the strong ties between the main family and the government? And Massacre had great authority. Even without her official position, Misty Fey still wielded great influence. The police have been keeping an eye on her movements all this time. That's how I was able to contact her. Again, because of my position as a prosecutor. So my mother was cooperating with you? Don't ever forget. No matter how far away from you she was, she never stopped thinking about you. She always... That's why I knew she would do anything to protect you. If you want to know how strong her resolve to protect you was, look at her staff. Her staff? The one with the sword in it? The day the plan was to be carried out arrived soon enough. We met for the first time in Hazakura Temple. That's when your mother showed me her special staff. I realized it then That's just how far she was willing to go. She was ready to use that sword, to protect you from Morgan Fay if necessary. Yes, even if it meant paying the ultimate price. That night, of the crime, there was just one way to stop Morgan's evil plan. You mean Pearls, don't you? We had to make sure she didn't channel Dahlia Hawthorne. Well, then why didn't you just tell her not to? This is what I don't get. Why didn't you just say the truth instead of going through all this? Why didn't you just say to Pearls, don't listen to your mother, she's crazy bitch. Well, if you'd like, you can come to my room. Perhaps we can read some books together. We thought we could prevent her from playing her part in Morgan's plan, but she never showed up. She was worried and followed me to the inner temple. That was the thing we were most afraid of. That's why Miss Faye had to do the channeling herself. She channeled Dahlia Hawthorne into her own body. What do you mean? If she channeled the spirit first, then Pearls wouldn't be able to do it herself. As Master of Kree Rain, Misty Faye's powers was supreme. So that's how it went down. She channeled Dahlia Hawthorne so that Pearls Faye wouldn't be able to. Is this true? My role in the plan was to make sure no one was going to hurt Maya Faye. That's why I hid myself in the inner temple, just in case you needed to be saved from Dahlia Hawthorne. Dodo. Anyway, so I'm going to admit to, right? There's no doubt about it. You're a great defense lawyer, but you're gonna have to do the rest yourself. Who killed the victim? There are only two possible subjects now. Maya Faye. I'm sad to say, you, Mr. Gordo. Show us beyond a shadow of doubt that you can finish this on your own. Ugh. I can't do it. I can't testify against him. After all, he's the man who put his life on the line to protect Mia, and me too. Maya, I know that. But even so, it doesn't absolve him of his crime. Please, Maya, testify. Tell us about the moments before you lost consciousness. What exactly happened at the time of the murder? I didn't think this was going to be longer than it was. Oh god. I'm going to make this the final part. I was thinking about ending it. I might just have a break. I don't know. But it wasn't dead though. And she struck back at the enemy behind her. Suddenly the red lights went out and the whole area was dark. Just at that moment, there was a horrible scream. Right after that, the idea collapsed and I had lost consciousness. These red lights. I thought you said you didn't remember seeing them. I'm sorry. I thought I saw them, but then they disappeared all of a sudden. Things break, right? Even the best theories. Who was it that stabbed Misty Faye? It looks like you still can't prove it. Maya is telling the truth this time. I know it. The rest is up to me. Well then, Mr. Wright, proceed with your final cross-examination of the witness.